We've all been there when opening a new program for the first time where you become completely overwhelmed by all the windows, buttons, options and pop-ups, so you hit that X button and carry out your day in blissful ignorance. But give me 5 minutes of your time and I'll show you how beginner-friendly Godot's interface is, so you can get over that overwhelmed feeling and start your game development journey. To get started, of course, we're going to have to download Godot, which you can do at this page, which will be the top link in description. At the time of recording this, Godot 4.4 has just released and is the latest version. If this is a different version for you, that's fine. There might be slight changes to the interface, but it will be almost identical. We want to click this blue button here because this other button below it is the .NET version, which you can use to script in C#, but we don't care about C#, so we're going to click this blue button to download. And immediately you can see why Godot is my favorite game engine, because this install size is tiny and it literally takes seconds to set up. Now this is the file we downloaded. I just put it on the desktop and you can see it's a compressed zip folder. So we're going to right click on it, press extract all, press extract, and when it finishes extracting, it creates this new folder which we can open. And when we double click this top thing in here, Godot opens up straight away. When Godot opens up, we can press this create new project button. Then in this new window, we can give the project a name, and then at the bottom we can press create and edit. Now the first thing to know is that Godot is built around a node-based system. Nodes are the building blocks of your game, and each node is like a pre-built component with a specific function. To give you a few examples, there's the timer node which counts down, there's the sprite 2D node for displaying images, and the audio stream player node for playing sounds. You can see here up on the top left that we are prompted to create a root node. This will be our starting node that all our other nodes will branch out of. For the purposes of this overview, I'm just going to select 2D scene. Now up here where our node 2D is, this is called our scene tree. And when we add new nodes to our scene tree, they will all branch off node 2D, which is why it's called the root node. So for example, we can right click on node 2D, then we can select add child node, and then we can search here for sprite 2D, and we can double click it to add it as a child. And you'll see that all the nodes in this scene tree will have this parent-child relationship, where now sprite 2D is a child of node 2D, and node 2D is sprite 2D's parent. The next important thing to know is this inspector window over on the right, which shows all of the properties of whatever node is currently selected in the scene tree. So for example, if I click on node 2D in the scene tree, I can then see all of node 2D's properties in the inspector window, such as its transform and position settings. And if I click on sprite 2D in the scene tree, you can see its properties in the inspector, such as this texture property. And if we actually have a look down here in the bottom left in our file system, where all our files are kept, you can see that Godot has graciously provided a file for us called icon.svg. And we can just click on this and drag it across the screen, and we can drop it in this texture property here where it says empty. And now our sprite 2D node has an image to display, and you can see it appear on the viewport on our screen. The next important thing to know is what is a scene. So we've established that nodes are the elements that make up our game. Scenes are just a collection of nodes. For an example of a scene, in my card game tutorial series, I have a scene called card that contains all the nodes needed for a card, like the card image, health, attack, ability text, collision, etc. But a scene is just a collection of nodes, so it doesn't just have to be something small like a card. It could be an entire level, like level 1 scene, level 2 scene, and those scenes would contain all the platforms, obstacles, floors, walls, ceilings, etc. needed for your levels. Even where we're working here, where we made a node 2D and a sprite 2D, we're working in an unsaved scene. So if we hit Ctrl and S at the same time in our keyboard, it's going to prompt us to save this scene. I'm just going to call it icon and press save. And now if you come down here to the bottom left in our file system, you can see it created a new file called icon.tscn, and you can double click this to open up our icon scene whenever you want to work on it. And now I'm going to show you something cool that I really like with Godot. So if we go ahead and make a new scene now, we can do that by coming up here to the top left where it says scene, press here and then press new scene. Then we'll once again set the root node as a node 2D. And now look at this, if we go into our file system, we can click and drag our icon scene, and we can drag and drop it into our scene tree here to add it just like we'd add a node. So it's like even our saved scenes can be used as nodes. And for a use case example of this, in my card tutorial series, I have the card scene saved, and whenever I want to add a new card to the game, I just instantiate it. And instantiate sounds like a scary word, but it just means to create a copy of something based on a template. So we could instantiate this icon scene in the code, and it would do the same thing as if I was to drag this scene into our scene tree. I think once you understand this concept and do it yourself a couple times, Godot really starts to click. So I'm going to drag a few more of these icon scenes into our scene tree. So we have 4 or 5 of them. And now we have this toolbar up here. And you can see there's a few different options. There's a select tool, a move tool, a rotate tool, and a scale tool. And if we use the select tool and click on one of our icons, then we can select another tool like the rotate tool. Then we can click and drag to rotate our icon. And then we can try out the scale tool, and you can drag these points to scale it, and of course the move tool, and we can just click and drag around our icon. While you're familiarizing yourself with the toolbar, it's also good to note that you can scroll the middle mouse button forward to zoom in and scroll back to zoom out. You can also hold the middle mouse button down and move your mouse to move around in the viewport. And the last thing I want you to do is to just navigate around a little bit. If you have multiple scenes open, they appear as tabs up here above the toolbar, and you can click into them to open up that scene and show it in the viewport. And you can right click on these tabs and press close tab to close them. And if you want to open that scene up again, come down into your file system and double click on the saved scene to open it back up. You can see the tab appears back. And also above the tabs, you can see that we have these options for 2D and 3D and script. So if you're making a 3D game, you might be wondering why all your nodes aren't showing up in the viewport, and it's because you need to be in the 3D view. In the next video, I'm going to be showing you how to use GD Script, Godot's own programming language, in 5 minutes. So stay tuned for that by hitting the subscribe button.